Solo Leveling is the highly praised, critically acclaimed, stupidly famous webtoon/manhwa with god-tier art that puts other books like Burning Effect, Tower of God, and Home Sweet Home at the boom end of the boomstick. Solo Leveling is a book that I always chatted up about, but never read until now because I'm trying to procrastinate as much as I can from writing the Batman Arkham Origins and Batman Arkham Knight critique video, while trying to wade away advertising for my upcoming crowdfunding comic book project, because accomplishing those three tasks and working a normal 9-to-5 job as a programmer is as stressful and aggravating as trying to find a somewhat decent isekai anime. Anywho, now that I've read this apocryphal masterpiece, what do I think? Did this book live up to the expectations and hype? No, not really, but it's still badass, and the art's still orgasmically appealing to your eyeballs. Because even though the story is as entertaining as Marvel's Avengers or watching Subaru from ReZero die 20 times in an episode, or trying to understand what's happening on Tower of God's narrative, Solo Level is stupidly simple. The story doesn't even evolve over time. It's a story that remains stagnant but entertaining nonetheless, and the value it ultimately provides is from how awesome it is to watch the main character turn everyone and everything into a pound patty. What semblance of story exists revolves around a portal connected to our world, to a world full of monsters and other otherworldly creatures, with some people having acquired powers and abilities to hunt them called hunters, because that's super original. I would have called them the dirty bastards, but that's just me. But the protagonist of the story, I'm gonna butcher this, Sung Jin-Woo, the weakest hunter out of all the others in Korea, because of course he is, has a dream of wanting to become Hokage.
Believe it!
Until one fatefully cursed day, he finds himself trapped in an extremely dangerous dungeon by pure coincidence of the plot, and survives this stupidly dangerous situation and completes its trials to discover that he's transformed into a player. And like in the Elder Scrolls Skyrim's, he can see the world like a video game with a user interface showing him quests, stats, inventory, stores, and levels, with now the sole objective of the story is becoming the baddest motherfucker there is alive. Now, where most stories these days have this gimmick from where the main character eats the flesh of monsters or has some horrific backstory, which involves them getting mind raped and acquiring godlike powers because the author says the character does, Solo Leveling is a genuinely wholesome zero-to-hero story with the main character having altruistic intentions with everything he does, meaning he does the right thing because it's right and there's no other reason to do it because it's right. And this is by far the weakest aspect of the story. Now, under very normal circumstances, I'd be lambasting a book about how it's too edgy and grimy, but what makes Solo Leveling a bad book is the very fact that the main character is an unstoppable death machine, with thicker than oatmeal plot armor, but where the ex machina plot devices in ReZero are massively superficial, with the author coming up with whatever XYZ reason why all of these characters have to help Subaru, making his character more stupider than he looks, altering my original perception of the Sword Art Online Aincrad arc. Solo Leveling's weakest story component is that the main character is literally too powerful for his own good, to the point where reading the story is the generic formulaic situation of character is in trouble, main character enters the dungeon, and then everything dies because of course it does, because the main character is too goddamn powerful. I mean, why wouldn't it go down that way? But you gotta have a little challenge or something on the side. I mean, it's just one-sided annihilation at most of the time. So, as a whole, the first half of Solo Leveling Season 1 is entertaining, because the main character is introduced to these new powers, and he has to figure them all out. He uses those powers tactically to overcome obstacles which challenge the character at the start of the story, which made it good, which is a good thing. But by the latter half of Season 1, and a bootleg Hunter x Hunter Chimera Ant arc later, the main character becomes an unstoppable force of nature hitherto undreamt of, and the bad guys or villains of this book are completely non-existent. When I say they're non-existent, I mean to say that a vast majority of the villains are evil for the sake of evil, because they like evil and killing people. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with those types of characters, but when there's no flavor to the rogues gallery, it gets a bit monotonous, you know? Especially when all these characters are basically cardboard cutouts. If I were to describe this book essentially, it's Bleach. Anything else more than that, I'd say it's One Punch Man, but without the character depth and intrigue that story presents in its side and supporting characters and villains. I mean, the author tries, but it's clearly not hard enough, sadly. But considering the title of this video, do I recommend reading Solo Leveling? Should you buy the physical volumes by Yin Press, which are stupidly expensive? Hell, I am. That art, it's damn fine. And it's the only power fantasy series I can actually tolerate. But as for if you should read it, if you're in love with turn off your brain tales of suspense and thrills, or find a lot of meat and potatoes, yeah, then this is the manhwa for you.